we'll do a review in Likutei Sichos and Chelek Chof Daled. This is volume 24, and this is the Sicha for the Parshas Nitzavim. And in this Sicha, the Rebbe explains the Rashi in the Pasuk that it talks about that Hashem brought the Yidden into the covenant with Hashem. And the Rashi explains over there, and the Rebbe explains the different diyukim in the Rashi. The Rebbe explains that Rashi is bothered. Why are we saying that Hashem is making them into a people? This has already happened. Why is today loy la'am? This has happened by Matan Torah and for a long time. And the Rebbe explains that Rashi, all the words in Rashi, the changes we'll see is that this actually, Rashi explains, this is to sustain the previous covenant that already took place before. And the reason why this will be sustained is because the Eibishter was matriach himself and made it into a stronger covenant, because the Eibishter needs to be together with the Yidden. They cannot be distant from the Yidden, as the Rebbe will explain as we go along. The Rebbe also brings down from Yonah Torah, from the Likutei Torah, from Likutei Levi Yitzchok, the idea that Rosh Hashanah is called Zeh, it's also called Hayom, the two levels in Rosh Hashanah, in the way it's Hayom, the way Zeh, as the Rebbe explains in the Sikha. Let's go step by step. Nitzavim Aleph. In Onei Sedra, in the beginning of the Sedra, wird erzählt wegen dem Krisis Bris von dem Eibishter mit Eden. It's related about the covenant that was formed from Hashem with the Eden. Bosik says, "La'ovrecha bivris Hashem elokecha goymer," to have you pass through, Hashem passed through in the covenant with Hashem elokecha, as we know, as a covenant, both, as we'll see in the Sikha, both people that, or both entities that make the covenant, they go through in between one thing, and that makes it a bond, that makes the bris. And the reason is, the Pasuk says, why does Hashem take you through this covenant? Is leman hokim oischayim loy la'am goymer, so that Hashem will stand you up today for His people. Again. So that's in the pasuk. Stellt sich Rashi auf leman hokim oischayim loy la'am. So Rashi bases himself and quotes from the pasuk in his commentary. It says, "Leman hokim oischa hayom loy la'am," so that He will raise you up today to Him as a people. Und is mefarish. Rashi explains, "Kol kachu nichnas litroyach." Why does Hashem go and trouble Himself so much? Why is Hashem going through the trouble of making the covenant? Is leman kayim oischol lefonav la'am, so that He will sustain you before Him for a people. That's why Hashem is making the covenant with you. So this is seemingly a repeat of the pasuk's words. Pasuk says that Hashem is making the covenant, almost the same words like Rashi used. So we need to understand, what is Rashi telling us here? What is the Rashi mechadish? What is Rashi coming up with the novel? What's the novelty in the Pirush, in his interpretation? From the Verte leman hokim goymer, to raise you v'mivol ze gelernt on Pirush Rashi. How would we learn them without Pirush Rashi? So the Rebbe brings down a Pirush from the Meforshim, the Ram, the Gurari, the Sifsa Chachomim. So Meforshim learn as Rashi Nishver, what is difficult for Rashi? Because Rashi has an issue that the covenant was for the mitzvahs, not for making them into a people. There was a covenant that the Yidden will do the people. Why does the Torah say that the covenant is Leman Hokim Oischa Yom Leila'am? And Rashi is trying to tell us, that's the Mefarshim learn, that Hashem is going to go through this whole covenant with the Yidden so that Hashem will be able to keep them as his people. Let's look inside. That verstehen, Mefarshim learn. As Rashi is schwer, what is difficult to Rashi? Der Zoydach von dem Christus bris is doch gewähnt. What was the need? Why did we need the forming of this covenant? That took place nint leman hokim goimer loy loy laom. It wasn't to make it for Hashem, for a people. That's not the purpose of the covenant. Nor kidei sheyifchadu mehem v'yikaimu es haTorah, but that the Yidden should be afraid, violating, going against the Torah. They should fulfill the Torah. Akrisus bris of shmiras hamitzvahs. This is a forming of a covenant for keeping the mitzvahs. Is vozog der posuk laavrucha bivris goimer laman hokim goimer loylaam. So why does the posuk say that Hashem is passing you through this covenant so to make you into a people? But enter Rashi. That's what Rashi answers. As der Posuk kommt nicht zogun dem Zweck von dem Christus bris. That the Posuk here is not coming to tell us the purpose why we need the form of the covenant. But rather what the Posuk is coming to tell us, when it says Leman Hokim Yisra Yom La'om, das is atam farvos kol kachu nichnas l'treach. We're saying, why does Hashem go through so much trouble? He enters to trouble himself to make the covenant. Why to go through not why we have a covenant, but why is Hashem troubling himself with this covenant? If the Pasuk is coming to give an answer. Why does the Eibishter trouble himself to form this covenant with Yidden? And the answer is, Hayois az diber lecho v'nishba lavisecho sheloy lahachlif ezaram be'uma acheret, quoting from the Rashi, that Hashem has spoken to them and sworn to their father not to exchange their seed for another people. In other words, that the Yidden will always be the people of Hashem. Rashi is mevair gleich in dem dibur hamaschil shel achar zeh, as Rashi articulates immediately in the next Rashi that follows. The Eibishter gemuz kav yochel, so Hashem needed to make sure that the Yidden stay with him. He needed, so to speak, koyre zayin abris mit Yidden. He needed to form this covenant with the Yidden. As they zolun nit over zayin of Torah mitzvahs, they should not transgress, violate Torah mitzvahs. But as then he won't need to push them away from himself, which would be that would be contrary to the promise, to the oath that he gave to the father that he's going to keep them. So Hashem has to go through a lot of trouble to make this covenant so that way he can keep the Jewish people by him. What does this mean? The Rebbe asks, this is like very stretching the pshat, and it seems unnecessary. There's haste. So what does this mean? As the leman hokim goimer, that when the Pasuk says to raise you for a people, leman hokim, But this does not relate to pass you through the covenant, so to make you for a people. In other words, that the covenant is going to make you to a people. No. As Hokim is the Matorah from the Christus Bris, that to raise you to a people, that's the purpose of the Christus Bris, to make you a people, is by the covenant. No, the pasuk you read, that's what it seems to read. It's going through the covenant, so to make you a people, but that's not the way the Meforshim learn. They learn Noratam of Kol Kachon Nichnas L'Troyach. It's a reason. Why is Hashem going through the trouble to make the bris? Not the trouble to make the bris. There is the covenant itself that the Eibishter makes a bris. The covenant was not made for that. But why did Hashem go through traumas, trouble to make a covenant? The Tircha Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, why is Hashem troubling himself? Leman, so that Kidei Tzu Farzicherun, in order to make sure, as Eden bleiben loyla om kasher dibelo gomer, that they will remain a people as he spoke to you, that you will always be his people. Like he promised to your parents, that you and to your parents, that to the forefathers, that you will always be the people. So that's why Hashem troubles himself to go ahead and make the bris. So the Rebbe says that Pirush is over nit verstandig. This explanation, this interpretation is not understood. Der Inyan von Heikim Oischol Loy La'om V'hu Yeh L'chol Elikim, to stand you up to Hashem as a people, and that Hashem will be your God. This idea that Hashem, you need to be his people, that Hashem promised, together with, and Hashem will be your God, und shmiras ha-mitzvahs, together with the idea that keeping the mitzvahs, that hinges one on the other. If we do the mitzvahs, then we're Hashem's people, then Hashem is our God. As explained, clearly articulated in many verses. As those above in the Meforshim will explain the Rashi say over here themselves, Kinal, as we mentioned earlier, as if God forbid the Yidden, the Jews, will violate Torah mitzvahs, then Hashem will need to distance them, which is which would go contrary to his promise that he can't separate himself. That will be because Torah mitzvahs. So essentially, the forming of the bris, the trouble for forming of the bris, so that they will keep Torah mitzvahs, is essentially the reason, because to raise them for a people is farvos darfmen mechadish zayin. So why do we need to come up with the idea of learning as der leman heikim, that because to stand you up, but sitzich nit oif hamefurish bekosuv. So now we're going to say it does not apply to that which is in the pasuk. The pasuk says Hashem is passing you in the covenant so that he will raise you as a people. So you're saying no, it doesn't go. He's not putting you to the covenant to raise you as a people. Nor if kol kachu nichnas l'troyach, but not the covenant. But why is Hashem troubling himself so much? That's not written in the pasuk. Why can't we learn simply? Rashi doesn't have to say anything. As the Matorah from the Avrecha Bivris Goimer, that what is the goal? Why is Hashem making the covenant and making you keep mitzvahs? Because only through mitzvahs can we be Hashem's people, which is the Christus Bris of Shmiras HaMitzvahs. So why does Hashem make us do mitzvahs? Not why does Hashem go through this trouble, but why does Hashem give us the mitzvahs? So that we can remain his people. Is Laman Hokim, And he's going to be your God. As durch Kima Torah mitzvahs und Eden werden loyla that through the observance of Torah mitzvahs, Yidden should become his people. And the Eibishter will be your God. So basically, the goal is that Hashem should remain your God, and that you should remain Hashem's people. That is Laman Hakim because he can't get far away from you. And that's why you have to do the mitzvahs. So the bris, which are the mitzvahs, we don't have to come up that the trouble of going through of making a bris. The bris itself, that helps to sustain us. But the question is, why does Rashi still have to explain anything? Rashi should have left it and said that the bris, the covenant for doing Torah mitzvahs, is so that we can remain Hashem's people and he should be our God, because he can't get rid of us because he promised us. Base. The Rebbe questions the Lashon Rashi. You will see that there's a change. Rashi changes from the pasuk in various different words. He doesn't just bring down the word laman, whether the laman is a reason for the bris, why Hashem made the covenant, or the laman is why Hashem goes through the trouble. The Rashi just called laman, but also in the Rashi itself, you see clearly that Rashi is making changes in the pasuk because he's trying to tell you something about the pasuk itself. Let's look inside. Base. There's something else which is not smooth according to the above interpretation. The pirush zeh kumt ois. In this, according to this interpretation, it turns out as the chidush from Rashi is not in the werte. Rashi's novelty. Rashi isn't coming up with any points about the words Hakim Ischa Yom Lo La'am. That remains the same. It's for Hashem telling you for a people. Nor blois in vort laman. It's just explaining you. It's a reason for what? Is it a reason for the covenant, or is it a reason why Hashem troubles himself? As those batzitzach nitzum la'avracha bebris goimer, according to these commentaries, that it does not refer to la'avracha bebris, versteht in Friedrich pasuk, which is written in the previous pasuk, nor if kol kachun nichnas l'troyach, but on the fact that he's entering into so much trouble. Oder, another way, as der leman do meint nit bishvil. Another way to say this is that here leman does not mean because the mator v'tachlis ba'osid, that this is because of something of the future, nor lifi, this is a reasoning for the past. Lifi, not bishvil, something to happen later on, but because he's an isinas tam, if another, it is giving a reason for the past. Why? Why is he so much entering so much trouble? It's because because God must hold you for a people. If that would be the case, according to that Meforshim, we need to understand. So why does Rashi need to quote from the verse in his quoting from the pasuk, or the noch beguf pirushay, and then also in his commentary itself, the alaverter, all these words besides the word leman, kayim oischa lefon of la'am, quotes it from the pasuk hakim oischa, and in the Rashi kayim oischa lefon of la'am, Rashi isn't doing anything with that part of the pasuk. Nochmer, and if you look at Rashi's trying to tell you something here. Rashi's mishane from Lashon HaKos. The Rebbe points out the three changes that Rashi, quoting from the pasuk, changes. Aleph in pasuk state hokim, to raise you, and Rashi zok kayem, to sustain you. Beis, their posik zok loy la'am to him. But Rashi's Mishana says lefon of la'am, before him for a people. And give what Rashi's mashmid the vort hayoim. Rashi deletes, does not bring down the word hayoim. From them is muchach. From these changes of the pasuk, it's evident. Adechidush in Pirush Rashi do that what is the novelty in this Rashi? Is not in the verter kol kachonichnas letroyach. It's not that Rashi is coming to say he is so much trouble. That's what the chiddush of this Rashi. This is the beginning of his Rashi. Nortake in the verter leman kayim oischol lefon of lam. It's explaining the second part. Leman kayim oischol lefon of lam, so to sustain you for a people. Meint nit mighty sein the pasuk. Rashi is not quoting the pasuk, but he's explaining the pasuk. Nor to mefarish sein the pshat in pasuk. He's coming to explain the meaning of the verse. As the taich fun hekim in them pasuk is kayom. Now, what does even hekim means to sustain? When loy la'am meant lefon of lam, and loy la'am means before and for a people, as the Rebbe will explain. In Ois Gimel, the Rebbe explains why is it say over here the pasuk hayoim? The Yidden weren't made of people today. Laman Hakim, Rashi's problem is hayoim loy la'am. Why is today? The Yidden were made of people a long time ago. And Rashi explains, therefore, it's sustained and lefonov. The bir v'zeh. Rashi in Ardo Akashi Pshuta. Rashi is bothered by a simple question. Wie kemen zogen as the krisis bris? How could we possibly say that the forming of the covenant is leman hokim oischo hayoim loy la'om, is to stand you up today to him for a people, as Eden veren hayoim, that Yidden on that day, in them tog when kinsa Moshe l'fnei Baruch b'yom Moshe. This took place when Moshe gathered the Yidden before Hashem on the day of his passing. And at that point, he tells them, today, to stand you up to become a nation. To set you up, stand you up as a nation for Hashem. Beis Eden seinen schon von lang. The Eden were already from a long time by Matan Torah geworden an Am. During the Torah given, they were a people. Kimefurish become a psukim, as explicitly explained in many verses. Now we see, whenever, in many places when the pasuk uses the language of Hayoim, Rashi right away questions, why today? And Rashi has an explanation. But over here, why does it say that today you're being raised the people? Was the far when the pasuk zokt hayoim hazeni yesol, when the pasuk says today you've become a people. So over there in Parshas Kisove zokt bavorin glach Rashi. So Rashi immediately cautious and answers, explains. Ados meint nit as in yenem togni yesol. It doesn't mean that at that day you became a people. Every day it should be in your eyes as if that day you came to him into a covenant. So that means Hayom. Hayom means that as if every day you're forming that covenant. From Pasuk. Similar, in the other Pasuk, we say, Hayom hazah Hashem alekech metzavcha goymer. This day God is commanding you, is Rashi Mefarish. Rashi explains. The whole yom, why is Hashem telling you today? The Rashi explains, what does it mean today? That the whole yom you benecho kichadoshim, every day it should be in your eyes like new. Kilu bevayom nitztavis aleim, as if, and that day you were commanded on them. Und der Fun ist verstandig, and from that is understood. Das is euch der Taich in es Hashem hamarta hayom goimer, ve Hashem hemircha hayom. In the other pasuk over there, when it says that you have distinguished Hashem today, Hashem has distinguished you today to be his treasured nation. which comes as a follow-up over there in the pasuk to Hashem Elokecha. Rashi said that over there too, that means that it's all the time. That it means all the time. Hayoim means on a constant basis. But over here, it says that today, the Eibishter is setting you up, making you up, people. So Rashi answers it. Taka doesn't mean that today is setting him up. That it means that he's sustaining you from what he has already set you up in the past. Rashi answers, as Laman Hokim Goimer, that when it says Laman Hokim, meint nicht zu aufstellen, it doesn't mean to raise, nor kayam, to sustain, to aufhalten, to keep, to hold on, Iden al Saram, to hold on to them as a people. Was is verbunden mit der Peula von dem Eibishter, the Eibishter, that's why it says Hokim, because its kayam is to sustain, but Hashem is the Hokim, is doing the sustaining. The Krisus Bris for Matan Teure hat aufgetan. The forming of the covenant that took place when the Torah was given, that accomplished. As Eden seine geworden an Am verbunden mit Neibishtim, that the Eden became a people that were tied to Hashem. Aber, es ist doch möglich, but there is possibility, as der noch, that later on, ob dan Hoge von Eden später, the conduct of the Jews later on, or the Nishpeter Dikedators, or in generations later on, but Nizanki de Boyich will not be as it should be, God forbid. So then in the machine, there will be a change. Is that Oiftu from them bris? So what's the accomplishment of this second sustaining bris? Is the man kayim oischo chulul to sustain you for him people. And so that gebracht a kiyum, this brought in a sustaining element in the bris ben Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in this covenant between the Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem la'adul oil me'olamim, forever and eternal. Okay, verstandig. Now we also understand was dafke by them bris is mudgish, that why is specifically by this covenant there's the emphasis, it's emphasized as it is nit nor mit es asher yesh napo. It's not just with those who are here, the pasuk says, but you're making it also nor euch mit es asher enenu po, those who are not here in Todos Hasidim Liyos, with the generation that are going to be in the future. That means that this is a special, sustaining, everlasting, to sustain the covenant that no matter what, it stays forever. But how is this bris different? Why the first bris you say is not sustained, but this one is going to be sustained? That's why Rashi says Hashem is troubling himself and he's making it a more powerful covenant than the one even before. Frek Dalet. Frek Tober Ben Chumash Lemikro. So the 5-year-old who's learning Chumash asks, since in the first covenant there was able to be a change, is my ulmei hai mahai. So why is this covenant stronger than the other one? Mitvos is der bris anders und starker. Why is this covenant different and stronger? As in him can nit werden kein shinoi, that there could be no change in this. Just like there was a change in the first bris, there's going to be a change over here too. Is Rashi Magdim? That's what Rashi introduces. Kol kach nichnas litroyach. There's so much that Hashem enters to trouble himself. By them bris is der Eibishter reingegangen in Atirchem Yechedes. Through this covenant, Hashem entered into a very special trouble. Hat sich speziell reingelegt kaviyochel in dem Christus bris. He specially put himself, so to speak, in that forming of the covenant. Did the pasuk zog, as the pasuk says, li ovrecha bibris. It wasn't just a covenant; he passed through the covenant. Pirush Rashi, derech havore, as Rashi explained, lo ovrecha means in a way of passing through. As euch der Eibishter is kaviyochel durchgegangen, that it's also Hashem, so to speak, went through. Zwischen the mechitza mekan and mechitza mekan, between the two partitions that both parties that are forming this covenant pass through. Und euch, in addition, as in them, bris hat verbunden euch mit Olosoi, that this covenant is also tied with Hashem's Olah, with the Shavua and the curse, the strongest way of covenant. And therefore it had a decisive impact. Also on the Eden. This was the riber is in them shaykh and shingim b'tzidam. That's why from the Yidden there can be no change. Even if they can never be a change. They don't follow through, there's not going to be a change. Und dem Oiftu is in Eden, durch dem Bris, that accomplishment that it takes place by the Eden, the Bris, is explained by the next words in Rashi, Lefonov. Is Ratzi Madgish. Rashi emphasized the mitvos is Mishaner. The fact that he changes from Loshen HaKosef. The Pasuk says, Lo Lo'om. Rashi changes on his medayik, and he especially emphasizes the main Leman Goimer Lefonov law, before him for a people. What's the chiluk between Lo Lo'om and Lefonov? Loi just means that they belong together. Lefonov means ahead of him. The chiluk tzvishon Loi La'am, the difference between to him for a people, Lefonov Lam, and before him for a people. Loi La'am, to him for a people, meant as that Am gehert zum Ebersten. That means that the people, the Am, belongs to Hashem. Si seiner an Am, it's his people. Lefonov La'am, but before him for a people, meant as that Am is nit nor seiner. That means not only that he belongs to him, but can be a distance, is Lefonov, it's before him. Nor sei seinen und stehen Lefonov. Sei seinen und stehen vor ihm zusammen mit him. They are and they stand before him, together with him. Similar to what is stated in the beginning of this Sedre, Atem Nitzavim Hayim Kulchem, Lifnei Hashem Elokechem, you're standing before Hashem, Goymer, etc. Und therefore seinen Nitshayich kein Shinuim in dem Bris. That's why cannot be any changes in this covenant. Then when is loy if you're just his people, as the Pasuk says, but they can also be not lefono, but they can be distant from Eibishter. This gives room, as is all the need feeling with an am. They don't feel like they are a people. Was the Eibishter that Hashem has chosen? They don't feel that because they're not always in the presence of Hashem. They're his people, but they don't see that. Since they don't feel that, that's why there can take place changes. Then was the Eibishter macht kayom, the Eibishter sustains. As Eden soll allemal sein und stehen lefon of, they should always be and stand before him for people, zusammen mit him, to be together with him. Is man versichert, then you're guaranteed, as is vet nitzayin kishum chalishus in the krisis bris, there will be no weakening in the forming of the covenant. The Rebbe brings down now in the inner things from the Likutei Torah that, just like we're saying loy and lefonov, loy just means him and lefonov means before him, together. Also, when we say the word am, sometimes it's translated as am meloshin imay separate. Sometimes am is imay with him. We hear, as the Alter Rebbe explains the Likutei Torah, it's imay. Hey, in the Pirush Rashi Zetman, in this Rashi, we see Boilet very openly, the Rashi B'Pirusha La Torah, that Rashi in his commentary of the Torah, Zusammen der mitvos anile bosel l'pshute, together with the fact that the Rashi is just coming to give us the literal meaning of the verse. Und jeder Wort is nötig zu bavonas pshute shel mikra, and every word is important to understand the simple meaning. So that's why every word of Rashi is measured according to the pshat. But yet, hat in the selbe Wörter euch meramis, the same words Rashi also hinted in Yonim from Yenushal Torah, matters of the wine of Torah, the inner part of Torah. That inyan in Pirush Rashi al derech hapshat, this idea in Rashi that we learn according to the literal pshat, as der Oiftu von der Bris besteht in them was in seinen geworden. That what is the accomplishment of this covenant? That Yidden became lefonov, not loy, but lefonov ahead, together with him. Lefonov lam, vert mevur nochmer. This is explained even more when his masim mit dem Pirischen Alten Rebbe, and it fits with the commentary of the Alter Rebbe. In Lekutei Torah von Heintiker Sedre, in the Lekutei Torah from today's portion. In the word am, as he explains the word am, as thus meant, he says, what is the meaning of the word am over here? Need with the taich von am become a mekoimis, not as the translation of the word of am in many places, which is meloshon oimemois, v'cholim oimemois, shehem, dvorim nifrodim v'zorim urechoikim imailas hamelach. We say that they are like separate; those are parted; they're not anymore connected, and they're separate and strange and far from the advantage of the king, as quoting from the Shadich Lamuna nor Farkert. The Alter Rebbe teaches, "Imoy sheim anoshim kemoisu misyachsim elov." They're with him. Their am means that they're with him and they are related to him. They can relate to Hashem. The man hokim oischol goimer loy laom. Hashem put va'om is those was der Eibishter heibtoif Yidden. That is where Hashem raises Yidden ad bechinas machshava elyoina, till the level of the supreme thought. That is the imoy makes it. The Rebbe is going to explain now further that these two aspects actually apply to Rosh Hashanah, in which we have both areas, that level of loy, just part of Hashem, and then we also have the level of imoy, to be together with Hashem. The Rebbe explains. Yeah. Noch an Inyan, Rebbe goes away now, a long discussion of the Yenishal Torah Shabbat Pirush Rashi. Another idea, the Yenishal Torah of the Pirush Rashi. If Atem Nitzavim Hayoy, when it says in the pasuk, you are standing today, Zogt Alter Rebbe says, as Hayoim Koyal Rosh Hashanah. Standing today, this Hayoim is referencing Rosh Hashanah. When is Mevair, the Alter Rebbe explains, as Yeder Rosh Hashanah Dar Zayin, there's a Koran Habris zwischen Yidden mit Neversten. That on Rosh Hashanah, there needs to be the remembering of the covenant between the Yidden with Hashem. Is Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem L'Avrecha, that covenant. Aderech Zeh is a Mevair, the Psukim Anal in Parshat Tovei, also before, when we explained in Parshat Tovei, where it says, Hayoim Azeh Hashem Elokecha Mitzavcha, commands you today, going there. Hashem Amarta Hayom Gomer. You have distinguished Hashem, Hashem Amircha, Hashem distinguishes you, Lias Leilam Zgulu, to be a treasured nation, as those gate, if der Krisis Bris was wert Evgitam Rosh Hashanah, that this is referencing the covenant that is formed on Rosh Hashanah. So basically, all these Hayoims are referring to Rosh Hashanah. V'api ha'amur li'il. Based on what we said before, as the Tzvei Psukim, seine Tzvei Fanim in der Krisus, Bris zwischen Eden mit Neibishtim. Now these are two ways in the forming of the covenant between a Yid with the Eibishter. One is lihi yois, to be loy la'am, just to be his people. And the other one is hokim kayim oischa loy lefonav la'am, that Rashi explains here, to sustain you, and lefonav la'am, the higher madrege, to bring in nitzchias to that, because it's lefonav la'am. Kum tois. So it comes out as Bereish Hashanah, when Giton Beidin Yonim and Al Rosh Hashanah, both are accomplished because both side the Atem Nitzavim and Liyas Loi La'om, which is in Parshas Tovei, and Ashahokim Oischuk, the fun of La'om, which is in Parshas Vayelech. So that this all Parshas Nitzavim, Parshas Nitzavim, Kumtuis as Bereish Hashanah, Vernov Giton Beidin Yono, they're both accomplished because they're both Hayyebs. So the Rebbe brings in these two madreges by bringing in the Lekutei Levi Yitzchak, which says that the Rosh Hashanah is hinted by the word Zeh. Let man das verstehen, behagdim abir, by first introducing an explanation in the Aoris von Taten, in the notes from my father, from Zoyer on the Zoyer, who is mefarish. He explains, as oich der posik hayoim hazeh niyeh la'am, and this day you become a people. So that also gate of Rosh Hashanah. This is the language I'm quoting his father in the Ha'or. You should know that the posik, this day you become a people, goes on Rosh Hashanah. This is why we say Hayom Hazeh. Rosh Hashanah. It goes on Rosh Hashanah. Hayom Hazeh niyes la'am is Rosh Hashanah. What does it have to do with Rosh Hashanah? Shenikra Zeh. Rosh Hashanah is called Zeh. Kamesha Kosu. The posik says, Zeh Hayom Tchilas Masach. This day is the beginning of your action, which is a Rosh Hashanah. The beginning of the creation, which is really on Moshe, on the day of Adam Rishon was born. That's the day of Tchilas Masach, which is at a higher level than Brias Ha'olam, because Adam was created then. The Oz. So Hayom Hazeh niyeh la'am, you become a people, Kamesha Kosu. Leman hokim oischa hayoim liyas loy la'am. So over there it says, Wakas hayom liyas loy la'am. Shekoyel Rosh Hashanah. That goes on Rosh Hashanah, as the Rebbe just quoted also. This is from his father quote. So, okay, so the idea that this pasuk is talking about Rosh Hashanah, that's okay. That's very fitting. But why does the Rebbe's father prove that it's talking about Rosh Hashanah from the fact that it says there Hazeh and not from Hayom? That man verstehen, we need to understand. The Rebbe is explaining all this to come to the two explanation of the two madreges in the pasuk of Loi La'am and Lefonav La'am, and the nitzchias of the sustaining of the bris and the previous bris. That man verstehen. So we need to understand that that's the Zustand von the zwei Psukim. The idea of putting together these two verses, the Yesol La'am, you become a people, the man hokem Yisrael Gomer, can man verstehen. That you can understand. Valdo is men nor oisen arayev klolus ha'inyan. We are just bringing a proof for the general idea to raise you as a people, as der hayom hazeni liyosol le'om, that when we say that you become a people in Parshas Tovei, which the Rebbe's father says is Rosh Hashanah, hota shaykhet with dog for Rosh Hashanah. How do we know? Has a connection to Rosh Hashanah. Undos as a yom gate of Rosh Hashanah, and the fact that a yom is a Rosh Hashanah, you find me beferish in the Lekutei Torah And that's very clear in the Torah of the Apostle, man hokim oischa hayoim loy la'om. So he teaches the hayoim that we're discussing, that Apostle the whole time that it goes on Rosh Hashanah. Medaf aber verstehen the raya. We need to understand the proof that the Rebbe's father brings. As a yom as they get to Rosh Hashanah, he says the yom that goes on Rosh Hashanah, well, Rosh Hashanah nikra zeh because it's called zeh. Those was a yom gate of Rosh Hashanah. The fact that a yom goes on Rosh Hashanah is doch nicht weil Rosh Hashanah nikra zeh. A yom goes on Rosh Hashanah is not because it's called zeh. That's why it's Rosh Hashanah. Nor weil der Wort hayom gufa is meramis of Rosh Hashanah. That's the word hayom. Hayom is yom of the day of Rosh Hashanah. The Lashon from Alten Rebbe, as the Alter Rebbe says, "B'chol mokim shneimar hayom Rosh Hashanah." Wherever it says yom, it's Rosh Hashanah. Wie der Ramaz on the Zohar was very angezeichnet the Torah, which is reference, which is look at the Torah is mavayed as nikra hayom. Why is it called hayom? Difishu yom hashishi, because it's the 6th day Shabbat Nivra Adam Harishon, which Adam Harishon was born. Hayom hayidu, it's the known day, because on the day when we talk about Rosh Hashanah, which is the 6th day, which is a known day, it's the ha. So therefore, it's the day. But my father says, as hayom hazen niyes lahom. Why do we say hayom hazen niyes lahom goes on Rosh Hashanah? Not because it's hayom, but because of the hazeh. Get to Rosh Hashanah v'nikra zeh. Und not mitzad dem word hayom, and not just because of the word hayom. The surprise here is even greater. The Rebbe's father himself uses the pasuk of hayom, and that it's on Rosh Hashanah. So why does he have to say here's in the Ha'ara Gufa, in this note itself, bringt gleich der noch kinal, as mentioned earlier, he brings immediately then pasuk leman hokim ois hayom loy la'om shekoil Rosh Hashanah. But it doesn't say zeh; it just says leman hokim ois hayom loy la'om, that it goes on Rosh Hashanah. Und dort steht nicht hayom hazeh. It doesn't say hayom hazeh. Weil derech zeh steht nicht hazeh in pasuk atem nitzavim hayom das koil Rosh Hashanah. Also in the pasuk atem nitzavim that goes on Rosh Hashanah also doesn't say hayom hazeh. So why does the Rebbe's father say that the reason we know it's Rosh Hashanah is because of hazeh? So the Rebbe explains now, the Rosh Hashanah Atzmas and Adot Tzvei Bechinas. In Rosh Hashanah itself, there are 2 levels. Ein Bechina was wird angerufen Zeh, one level which is called Zeh, und in Posik, Hayoim Hazeh Niyesa La'om, and in the verse, Hayoim Hazeh Niyesa La'om, Evochen der Tate stellt sich, on which my father places himself, is Negea Di Bechina in Rosh Hashanah. Over there, it's important that level in Rosh Hashanah. Und a zweite Bechina was wird angerufen Hayom Stam. And another level which is called just Hayom. The imposik atem nitzavim Hayom doesn't say Zeh, leman hokim escha Hayom loy la'om, but there's no Zeh over there. And the Rebbe explains the difference now, that Zeh is more emphasis, that it's actually something that you can point your finger on more than just Hayom the day. Zayin, the beer in them. Afal pi azoich Hayom stam. Aber be'ehi idea that even though just Hayom, without specifying, but it has Hayom, it's the day Vaistef Hayom Hayadua, points to a known day, Kumt es aber nicht zu dem Inyan von Hayom Hazeh. It doesn't reach the extent, the level of Hayom Hazeh, was weiß as nicht nur is there Hayom Hayadu B'seichel Chulu. That points that not only is it a known, intellectually you know it, nor Zeh, it can unweisen auf ihm Marim Betzba, you can point with your finger. But das is euch der Biur in dem Shinu Loshen in Pirush Rashi ala Torah, also the change of language in Rashi on the Torah. From Pasuk the Parshas V'aschanon, and the verse Parshas V'aschanon, Asher anoichi mitzavcho hayoim. Over there is Rashi Mefarish. I told you today, that I command you today, lo yu benechi di yu tagmo yushena. Shouldn't be like an old letter, an old elok kachadosh, but like a new one, mitachof hadimyon. with a kachadosha with a comparable chof, like no Mashenkenev in Posik in Pashas Tovei, as opposed to the verse Pashas Tovei now. We read before. There says Hayoim Hazeh Hashem Elokech Mitzavcha. Today Zeh Mitzavcha. Zokter B'chol Yom Yu Benecho Chadosh. Doesn't say Kachadosh, Chadosh, Mamash. On Chof Hadimah, without that comparative chof. Well, that is in Posuk with Parshas Vayisroi. Parshas Yisroi, similar in the verse Parshas Yisroi. Vayoyim Hazeh Bod Midbar Sinai Zokter Rashi. This is Yom Hazeh. This is Yudvorei Torah Chadoshim Olacha. This is Yudvorei Torah Chadoshim Olacha. We knew not Kachadoshim, but Chadoshim. Based on the above, we can say the reasoning. In Parshas Yisroi v'Tovoi, in Parshas Tovoi state, in Posuk state Hayom Hazeh, it says this day, or by Yom Hazeh on this day is dos matgish. That emphasizes their talk from Matan Torah is by Meir Begilui. That emphasizes that the day of Matan Torah is open. Yom Hazeh, by Yom Hazeh, it is Marabet's boy. You can point with your finger. As that is for seine Augen, he sees it in front of his eyes. So then the words of Torah from Matan Torah, they're new because this is actually sees them now. Mashenk in the Parshas Veschanon, as opposed to the portion of Veschanon, where state nit hazeh. So they say that Pirush, it means as the talk from Matan Torah is faran on Yadua b'chol yom. That means that the day Matan Torah exists and is known every day. Since it's not in the same way, you can see marabetz, but you can point with the finger. Is a nor kichadosha mitachof hadim. It is only like new with a comparative chof. Ches. And now the same similar two levels that Rebbe said will exist in Rosh Hashanah. Similar, we have exist these two levels in Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, as we say in Rosh Hashanah, Zeh hayoyim. This is the day, the beginning of your action. And base, and number two, he says, it remembers the first day. This day is the beginning of your action gate of Yom Shish L'Maaseh Bereshis. That refers to the sixth day of the creation, when Adam was created. Yom Briyas Adam, the day that Adam was created. Then it was accomplished, it came up, that idea of Zeh. Elokus soll sein begilui, that godliness should be openly dolamata here below. Weil gilu elokus in an oifun von Zeh, because the revelation of godliness in a way of Zeh is the dafke by nishmas odom. It's only by the soul of man. There could be Zeh with that the soul of odom. That can be the yin of Zeh. Zekornli Yom Rishon, remembering the first day, gate of Chofei Elu. That goes on the 25th of Elu. Yom Rishon the Ma'aseh Bereshis, the first day of the act of creation. Was his bechinas koi. Chofei is in the level of koi, such. In them tog otzich oivgiton that iker chidush oilam. Over there was accomplished the main renewal of the world. As is overgiven in an eifum from koi. But it was just in a way of koi kachadosha, like was weist as mezet nid zachar lane. We don't see the item itself. Mezet lois adamus. You just see an image, an abspiegelung von der Zach. In Welt, you see a reflection of this item in the world. So the kichadosha is only a reflection. You just say Adamus, an Aufspiegelung von der Sache, a reflection of the item. In Welt hat sich nicht gesehen der Chidush. In world, you did not see this renewal. From Marim Bez, we can't show with the finger. Der Koyach Halakiv was hat bashafen. The godly power that created Mechadish Gven the Metzias Oilam, renewed the existence of the world, is mitzad. That is on its own, that is hidden. The world cannot recognize that. But that was when the creation was. But it's wird euch der Inyan. But now, when it comes when it comes on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Bris Adam, but der Kiddush Yom Rishon, Bris Olam, the novelty of the Yom Rishon, Bris Olam, was it Tzchayv B'Pam Rishon B'Chov Hevel. We're saying Zeh Hayoyim, Tchilas Maasecha Zikoron Yom Rishon, that what it accomplished in the first time of Chov Hevel, Oiv Giton, the Yom Rosh Hashanah. Now on the Rosh Hashanah, we actually recognize the chiddush that took place on Chafei Elul. And Allah Hamshochas Luis Ma'aseh. Everything hinges on the act of person. Also, this creation of the world is renewed on Rosh Hashanah, not just the Brias Adam, but the creation of the world is Zeh Hayom. That brings down the Yom Rishon, Yom Brias Adam. On the day when Adam was created, we have the Brias, the revelation of what was hidden at the time when it was the creation.